Brandon Ingram had just 2 points in Team USA's opening game win over New Zealand. Is everything okay? I'll explain what's behind BI's lack of production in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with y'all on this Monday. We are still 3 days a week here on Locked On Pelicans. It's deep in the offseason. I need a little bit of an offseason myself. And we're going to kind of pivot from the Countdown Mondays right now in today's show to talking about Team USA getting a 99-72 win over New Zealand as they opened FIBA World Cup group play. So we'll look at BI's game in this one, kind of see why he struggled, where he kind of stands with this Team USA roster. We'll look at Team USA and their recap the win overall for what they did on early Saturday morning. And then I want to look at some of the other international players for the Pelicans, particularly Jonas Valanciunas and Dyson Daniels. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by FanDuel, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And of course, if you want to support Locked On Pelicans, become an everydayer. 2 words, every dayer is what they say. Listen Monday through Friday or Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 p.m. live show. So let's get right into this and Brandon Ingram's role on Team USA, because in the 99-72 point win over New Zealand, Brandon Ingram looked a little bit like he struggled. He had just 2 points on 4 shots. And when you look at all of the exhibition games that they played, and we talked about this a good bit during the live show as well, that he hasn't been the focal point of this offense whatsoever. And he struggled to, at times, make an impact on the offensive side of the ball. So what's going on? When you look at this team and, the players on there, it definitely feels like he's one of the guys that you could easily kind of make the focal point of everything, right? In the starting lineup, you have Jalen Brunson, you have Mikal Bridges, you have Anthony Edwards, Brandon Ingram, who's playing kind of in that 4 spot for them, and then Jaren Jackson Jr. And Brandon Ingram in 15 minutes, 35 seconds of action, just 2 points on 1 of 4 shooting. And you could look at that and go, oh, this isn't great. This isn't something that you really expected from him. We expected more, right? But when you look at Team USA, and I think it's important to remember what they're trying to do here. This is the team is trying to win a gold medal. That is the goal here of this Team USA FIBA World Cup. They're trying to win a gold medal. It is not necessarily about developing Brandon Ingram, letting other guys kind of take their turn to shine and spread the ball and the wealth around. It's simply go win games. And guess what? They're undefeated so far. So what they're doing is working and translating to wins, even though we'll talk more about that because some of the wins aren't like wonderful. 99-72 over New Zealand's good. Don't get me wrong, win your games. But they were down for a chunk of it, and that wasn't great, including into the second quarter and having a close game in the third. That's not ideal here. So they're trying to win. They're winning. You don't necessarily have to change anything. But when you look at Brandon Ingram, his role offensively with this team isn't what he's used to. With the Pelicans, when he's out there, even with Zion Williamson, one of them has the ball in their hands for the most part. Or when there's no Zion and it's BI and CJ, Brandon Ingram is playing that point forward role, kind of playing point guard for New Orleans. I've long said they don't have like a true point guard. They have a, ball handler by committee kind of thing. Brandon Ingram's 0.5 to 0.7%, is like 50 to 75% of a ball handler. Zion is kind of in the same range. Same for CJ. Herb's a little bit less than that, I'd argue. But everyone kind of can handle the ball even if they're not elite at it. And so Brandon Ingram can get himself into the flow of games, though, simply because he has the ball in his hands a lot. He's dictating the offense. He's helping create and point out to his teammates some of the actions they need to be doing. And so he can pick and choose his spots. Well, here, that's not the case. Jalen Brunson with the starters is running the offense. You know, you have Anthony Edwards, who's been their kind of leading scorer a good bit as these exhibition games have gone on. You have Austin Reeves coming off of the bench, who's frankly played really well and initiates a ton of the offense too. And so it means Brandon Ingram needs to play off ball a little bit more and be, I don't want to say role player because that's the wrong word to use, but he's just not in a position to go out there and have the ball in his hands and just do his thing. He's just not a point guard here. And he said after this game, when he talked about how, his play has been a little bit frustrating so far and he's not been thrilled. He says, quote, "It's a little frustrating right now with trying to kind of find his way and struggling a little bit. It's okay. It's a different role. It's fine. None of this to me is really a big deal. When he comes to New Orleans and plays back with the Pelicans, it's going to be exactly what it was before. And here, he's still just kind of trying to find his way. The good thing is he's trying to fit in. He's trying to play the right way. And when he gets the ball, he's trying to do what he needs to do and what his role within this offense is, which also includes not forcing shots, not trying to necessarily make an impact if he doesn't need to, I think. When you look at him, he's trying to play make, create for others, 3 assists in this game. That works. We've also seen him, and I talked about this on Thursday during our live show, Thursdays, 7 p.m. Central, if you want to join this week. And he's playing hard on defense. He's allowed to be a little bit more physical with things. And I like what we've seen there from him. We've seen some more blocks. We've seen more contests. And it's just a different style than what Brandon Ingram is used to. And it's just, I don't know, he takes some time to adjust. Offensively, he hasn't had a ton of opportunities. And Steve Kerr, who's coach of Team USA here, says, quote, "I think that'll change. I think his time is coming. He's just got to stay with it. The thing I've learned with FIBA is every night belongs to someone new," end quote. I mean, it's true, right? Paolo Banchero in the team's opening game win over New Zealand, we'll talk about that, was the leading scorer with 24 points, I think it was, 21 points. He's the youngest guy on the roster. He hasn't stepped up and had a game like that yet. There's been moments when it's Tyrese Halliburton, more on him. There's been times when it's Bridges. There's been times when it's Anthony Edwards. So I don't know if after really one game of group stage play, we need to freak out about Brandon Ingram and what's going on. He's there. Do your thing, right? And I think that's kind of what he's trying to do. And I think once they start to try and involve BI a little bit more in a way that he's useful or that he's used to playing, I think that's where you'll really see him start to take off. But he's also said this is a learning experience. It's not necessarily about him getting his numbers out there. It's seeing everybody work, to see how other players play. And he says, so I can take it back to my team, be smart about it, end quote. As he finds his way, I think the opportunities are going to happen. And I think you'll see him start to have bigger games and get more involved because people seem like, yeah, they want that. And he was handpicked for this team for a reason. So it's interesting to kind of see him in a different role and not do well with it. But again, they're winning. So maybe he is doing well. He's playmaking. He's playing defense. He can explode for points if he needs to. But there's a lot more to playing winning basketball than just that. But the team did win 99-72 over New Zealand. Let's talk about that game and Team USA in general coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Third segment, we'll get into Dyson Daniels, Jonas Valanciunas, who are also playing in the FIBA World Cup. But before we get to all of that, today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. So now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use. It's really easy to use. I love how it's laid out. You can find the bets you want so easily find other bets you weren't thinking about that you feel good about and get in on that action too. And you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL and America's #1 sportsbook. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here. No one else comes to y'all like this. The #1 Pelicans podcast, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 p.m. live show. I hope you join. Those have been a lot of fun. It's my chance to answer your questions. And for the everydayers there, the everydayers for while we're in the off season, Wednesday, Team USA, we're going to recap the game that they just played. They're playing Tuesday morning early or Monday morning early when this is probably dropping. And we'll recap that one and look at that and Brandon Ingram on Wednesday's episode of Locked On Pelicans. So Team USA looked a little shaky. Look, you get a big win, 99-72, a 27-point win over New Zealand. You can relax and just go, okay, let's move on to game 2, which is Greece, Monday morning, depending on when you're listening to this show. So a 27-point win's as expected, right, for Team USA? Not so fast. This was a game where the U.S. struggled, and Steve Kerr kind of chalked it up to first game jitters, but they've played a couple of exhibition games here, and you're seeing some problems start to develop with Team USA. So one of the things, and again, they have a talented roster that's capable of fixing problems, right? Who thought Paolo Banchero would step up, youngest guy on the team, and do all of this? But the starters really did struggle in this one. Foul trouble early for some of them, which has been a problem and is going to be a problem for Team USA. If they were to lose, it's going to be because guys get into foul trouble and they can't have the kind of impact that they want to have out there on the court. Bridges had 4 in this one, right? Jaren Jackson Jr. with 5. Getting into foul trouble, kind of limiting them and what they're capable of doing when you need those guys out there doing those things. Banchero, by the way, with 4 blocks is pretty awesome for him. So as this team kind of struggles, the bench comes in, and Tyrese Halliburton has largely been the catalyst for them. So they were down 10. They were down double digits here early in this one. They were down closer, it was like a point or two in the second quarter. And then the third quarter was still close before eventually, as has happened in games against Germany and other teams too in their exhibition games, the talent wins out in the end and they just go and do their thing because they're filled with a bunch of NBA players and New Zealand doesn't have that. So they go out, they end up dominating. You kind of walk away from this one and are okay. I don't think they're going to make a starting lineup change yet. I think they're going to keep Jalen Brunson in there, and I think they like the change of pace with Tyrese Halliburton. But when he comes in, man, he really adds a lot to this team, just flying around in a way that no one else really brings to this roster. You don't want to look at his points and everything, but the efficiency in which he plays with, I think, has been kind of incredible, and how much better he makes the rest of his teammates, particularly because they tend to run whole on second units for everything. So he gets out there and can go in and kind of helps get them back into more or less every game that they've been down when it comes to it. They also really do need to try and figure out a way to limit some of the foul trouble. Jaren Jackson Jr. is really important for them because in FIBA, there's no defensive 3-second violation. He can go out there and just kind of stay in the paint and block shots. But when he's not out there, they're going to rely on Banchero to be that kind of rim protector. And he can do a lot of that, but he's not necessarily the guy to go out there and be your defensive anchor. You need to get other guys out there. It's got to be Jaren Jackson Jr. doing all of this, I think. And as these guys start to gel, and this one was kind of weird too. If you watch the game, the Team USA didn't get out there for their warmups like they really needed to. There's a lot of pregame stuff that kind of messed with them, and I think their routine and their schedule and all of that too. Really, though, if they can limit the foul trouble, and then the other thing they need to limit is the turnovers. They had 19 total turnovers in this one. I just lost where my notes were. And so as the starters really struggled, 19 total turnovers is going to lose a game for you. How many times have we said that when it comes to the New Orleans Pelicans in things? It's one thing for New Zealand to have 19 turnovers, but for Team USA, that's certainly not what you want. And you don't want it to just be you've got to win in the fourth quarter and get a lot of the, just talent winning you out in the end. It'd be nice to kind of blow out teams, run away with it. And with a tougher test in Greece, even though they don't have Giannis playing, they've already played the U.S. There's going to be some film on that. I expect this to be a tougher game. I'm going to be curious to see how things have evolved. I don't think Kerr, as I said earlier, is going to make a lineup change just yet, but I think they're going to start to look at this and consider some of this. Do you want to put Banchero in for Brandon Ingram? Do you want to put Tyrese Halliburton in for Jalen Brunson? I think those are the type of changes that you could potentially see here, but overall, I think this team is going to really start to kind of figure it out. And as they start to move the ball with a little bit more purpose for what they're trying to do, I think it's going to end up being pretty good. By the way, Austin Reeves has been great for Team USA. I don't love saying that about a Lakers player, but credit where credit's due. Coming off the bench for them, 12 points, 6 assists. He's also been very active defensively for this team as well. I think you have Josh Hart out there off the bench making those hustle plays, the rebounds that we know of, getting out there and helping be on the court during the run that got the U.S. back into all of this one. You have Cam Johnson who can come in and keep the offense afloat. Halliburton off the bench who can also go out there and still just kind of really, really keeps things rolling for the team. It's a talented roster and one that was really built with a certain design in mind. And as we said in the first segment, anyone can kind of step up at any point in time and be the hero here. But if they do struggle again in this game against Greece, and we'll talk about it on Wednesday, as I said earlier, then I do think maybe, just maybe, they're going to end up needing to make some sort of lineup changes because you don't want to risk that going forward, and it's better to kind of do all the stuff now. So that's Team USA. Good win. Just get the win, kind of get out of there, and hopefully you've kind of seen exactly what you need to see. No more first game jitters, as Kerr said, and the whole pregame routine stuff can just be a whole lot better for the team going forward. But the Pelicans also have other players on international duty here. Jonas Valanciunas for Lithuania. You also have Dyson Daniels playing for Australia. Let's look at how they've done. They've each played 2 games. Let's talk about that coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Before we get to that, no, not even before we get to that. Thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday, Wednesday, live show Thursday at 7 p.m. Central on YouTube. I get to answer your questions. It's interactive. I have so much fun with y'all. Come join me. Come hang out for 30, 45 minutes as we just talk all sorts of hoops. I usually have a topic for us, and then we can go off the rails, do whatever you want. And I also throw some secret inside info out there that I probably shouldn't. And I didn't get in trouble, luckily, for this past week. So that was cool. I have maybe some more stuff for you coming on Thursday. So make sure you never miss an episode by becoming an everydayer. Now for your second listen, Saints final preseason game last night in the Dome, Ross Jackson breaking down everything black and gold over at the Locked On Saints podcast. Hung out with him this weekend. Awesome, awesome dude. Make sure Locked On Saints is your second listen today. All right. We are talking all things FIBA World Cup here on Locked On Pelicans. We talked about Brandon Ingram, kind of, the focal point for us here on this show with Team USA. But there are some other Pelicans players out there, and it's pretty cool to just have them getting this type of experience. As Brandon Ingram said, and I gave you the quote here, learn what other guys do, see how they operate, see what you can bring back to your team, the Pelicans, and use this as a great learning experience, even if you're not playing a whole lot. And look, Dyson Daniels for Australia isn't playing a whole lot. They beat Finland in their opening game, 98-72. Dyson Daniels getting just some mop-up duty in this one. A little over 3 minutes of action. Didn't score a single point. Got a rebound. Got an assist. Got a steal because he's good defensively. That was that. Second game for Australia. Didn't play at all. as they lost 85-82 to Germany. This for Dyson Daniels is just simply going through these practices, working with these teammates, and just trying to use these live practice reps that he gets in a positive way. See how some of these guys operate, as Brandon Ingram said. What can you take back? What sort of preparation can you learn from your time out there, even if you're not out there on the court playing, getting those live ball in-game reps that you want? What can you learn from Patty Mills? What can you learn from Josh Giddey, Matisse Thybulle, some of the others, Joe Ingles, Josh Green, some of the other guys on Team USA who are NBA players? And if you can take a few things away from that, and like he's friends with all of them, I'm sure, outside of all of this, that I find to be the biggest thing. When you get to play, try and make an impact, even if it's just on the defensive side of the ball, using your size, your length to get steals and try and push in transition, or simply defending in transition too, an area where he is particularly great at. Do that, and I think I'm very happy with Dyson Daniels and this experience for him. Another guy that's played 2 games with ties to the Pelicans, because he's the starting center, and I'm going to sneeze. Sorry. I don't even have like a sneeze button or a cough button here, and there you go. Is Jonas Valanciunas playing for Lithuania. They beat Egypt in their opening game, 93-67, and Jonas just does Jonas things. 15 points, 10 rebounds. Goes out there, plays a bunch, gives you just like those workman minutes, gives you 6 of 11 shooting, 15 points, grabs rebounds, 4 offensive boards too, which we know he's capable of doing. In the second game, as Lithuania then beat Mexico 96-66, guess what he did? Because this dude is consistent in 19 minutes of action. 15 more points, 12 boards, 3 offensive, 9 defense. Again, you know what to expect from him. He's about as consistent as they come. And for New Orleans, he plays as many games as he can, which is a truly great thing given some of the injury stuff that we've talked about here. I was just on WDSU this weekend with Fletcher Mackel talking about it. And he said, are you surprised that, and this was a question he posed to me, you should watch the segment. Are you surprised that Jonas Valanciunas is still here on this team? And as we've always said, as I've said every time we've talked about this on here, and I said it on the show, they're not looking to trade Jonas Valanciunas because he's bad. He is consistent and he is a good basketball player. But it's not you, Jonas. It's us, the Pelicans. It's me. Not me, but me, the Pelicans. He's making $15 million. They're $2.9 million into the luxury tax. And no, it doesn't exactly fit what the Pelicans need. You can be a very good player that just doesn't fit right, and that's the case for Jonas Valanciunas. He can't defend on the perimeter. He's not a rim protector, so you struggle to know what to do with him defensively unless you run drop coverage, and that's not what the Pelicans do. Maybe they should and adapt to the players, but they can just go with Larry Nance Jr. and close with him instead. So you don't need to pay a guy $15 million when you're in the luxury tax and don't want to pay it. They should pay it. They won't. There's a difference there. Then you should simply try and find a better player and trade the one that you don't need as much. And that's kind of what's happening with Jonas Valanciunas. I don't know if the FIBA World Cup is going to increase his value at all. I know that question is going to come up. I really doubt it because I don't know, these are like one-off things. Sometimes you don't want to overinflate someone because of this. Otherwise, Billy Hernangomez would have, required multiple first-round picks, and the Pelicans could have gotten that for him at the trade deadline this past year or even the past offseason because, he won the Eurobasket MVP just a season ago. Now he's no longer in the league. So I don't think this performance from him, the 2 consistent performances from him or however far Lithuania goes are going to do anything to up his value because he's already remarkably consistent. Teams should want that value that he's also an expiring deal that maybe makes them a little bit nervous, but that's kind of overall where things stand. I think they'd still like to trade him, but no real deals emerging right now, not because they don't want to or they're not trying. It's just sometimes it's hard to find a trade and, well, there you go. We'll see. I think this is going to be the roster that the Pelicans have. All right, that is the FIBA World Cup centric show. We are Locked On Pelicans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Wednesday, we'll recap the game against Greece. We'll talk more Team USA, maybe throw a what if or two in there as well. It is What If Wednesdays after all. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Thank y'all for listening to the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I love y'all. I'll be back with y'all on Wednesday.